I'm talking with Rick Hord, Public Information Officer for the Sheriff's Department on Okaloosa Island. This is Sunday, October 8th. Rick, can you tell us about the extent of damage here?
It's very extensive, especially on the ground floor units that face the Gulf, such as this one. Every single ground floor unit facing the Gulf that I've seen, certainly, has had the storm surge come through and just blast through like this. This particular unit's got maybe 1 or 2 feet of sand on the floor. Some of them have 3 or 4 feet, and it looks like the building was built for midgets with a 4-foot ceiling. And just everything is taken along with it. We've had kitchen sinks and pool tables and furniture just blasted out through the front of the buildings and deposited on Santa Rosa Boulevard and beyond, just like some boats have been lifted up and dropped in downtown Fort Walton Beach and on Highway 85 at the foot of the Shalimar Bridge and things like that. That's all the storm surge.
Okay, Rick, can you tell us if there's been any loss of life?
So far as we know, there has been 1 fatality. That was an elderly woman in Crestview who was home alone, and a tornado made a direct hit on her house, and she was killed, and that's the only one that we know of so far.
Okay, when will people be allowed to return to the island to get their possessions or to rework their homes and rebuild?
The current plan is for Tuesday morning. There's going to be a meeting this afternoon, Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock. There may be more information available at that time. We're all keeping our fingers crossed. We're hoping that that time schedule can be accelerated. We hope it doesn't have to be delayed any more than is absolutely necessary. It's crucial for people to remember that if we allowed even a few people out here, there would be total gridlock with the limited amount of roads and the tremendous amount of heavy work vehicles out here, bucket trucks, road clearing trucks. If we allowed even a few people out here, there'd be total gridlock, and these trucks would not be able to get their work done, and you'd never have the road cleared, you'd never have the power restored. It'd be just absolute chaos. It's absolutely necessary that these trucks and these crews have the opportunity to do their work.
Okay, Rick, you mentioned earlier that you don't want people to come on the island until next week, Tuesday. You want to tell them why?
A building like this, or any building that's been damaged for whatever reason, whether it's a fire or some kind of other incident, such as a hurricane or tornado, it's very tempting to go in and look around and see what's in there, but that could be a life-threatening situation. You notice we're standing right outside the threshold, and it's best that we don't go inside. Even though this building looks okay, and in this case it probably is, there's still a very bad chance that something could happen in terms of the ceiling collapsing, floors collapsing, walls falling down on you. People have been killed exploring around damaged buildings, and that's why it's imperative to stay out. Many of the buildings out here have been condemned as unfit for habitation and unsafe.
Rick, how long will it take to clean up the island?
Oh, it's going to take months, I would imagine. It's going to take months. There are some areas where there are swimming pools and parking garages that are completely covered by sand. In some cases, like the deep end of the swimming pool, that sand might be 8 or 9 feet deep. And there's a parking garage that I know of that is completely covered by sand. You'd never know it was there. And I know that it's 7 or 8 feet deep at some points. It'd be like King Tut's tomb. You could be walking on top of it for centuries and never know it's there unless you dig down. And there's an awful lot of digging to be done out here. It's like somebody took a giant squeegee and just spread all the sand out from the beach all the way through the motels and condominiums and private houses and spread it out across Santa Rosa Boulevard just like icing on cake, and took along with it all sorts of items: furniture, televisions, appliances. We've had a pool table carried along by this process.
How are people coping with the situation? The people live on the island. I'm sure with the buses coming through, a number of people have made comments and things. What are you hearing?
It's a relief for many people to see that at least their house is still standing. It's ironic that we're in a situation where people are saying, thank goodness all my carpet's ruined. Thank goodness my carport is destroyed, something like that. And because many people are much worse off than that. And people have seen the pictures from Andrew and from Hugo and from other devastating hurricanes. And we're not quite as bad as those were. It could have been a lot worse here. I've talked to some of the emergency crews and some of the law enforcement people who have come to help us out from places like Charleston and Homestead. And they say, as bad as this is, trust them, it could be a lot worse. They know firsthand it could be an awful lot worse. And we were saved by 2 things. The storm was going very rapidly forward, 20 to 25 miles an hour. Many hurricanes are going 5 miles or 10 miles an hour. And you'd rather, if it is going to hit, you'd rather that it move through as quickly as possible. And the other thing that saved us is the storm actually diminished in intensity slightly just before landfall. We were looking at the possibility of a borderline Category 5 storm, and it ended up being more on the borderline between Category 2 and Category 3. There's a big difference there. Devastation would have been absolutely horrendous if this had actually been a Category 5 hurricane like we thought it might be for a while. As far as I know, yeah, people will be allowed to go back into their homes when the island is opened. It's going to be a long time before the island is open for sightseers because it's not a safe place for sightseeing. The roads are still very crowded out here, and there are still travel difficulties out here. And when it is reopened, it will be opened at first to residents only, rather than to the curious and the sightseers. Those kind of people are just going to have to be content for the time being with what they can see through the news media and the first-hand reports of people who live out here who've come out to claim their property and salvage what they can.
Good. How long have you been working out here?
This is today's first day. We're coming out checking all the buildings, make sure they're secure or habitable, or if they're not, we'll condemn them real quick.
This is the first time you've seen it then?
On the island, yes. Other than through newsreel.
Have you been all the way down to the end?
Yes, I have.
Better or worse than you expected?
It's worse than what I really expected, but there's a lot of homes here that they just won't be able to go back into.
So how long do you think it's going to be before they get to the point where you can live out here again?
Good Lord only knows. No idea. It's bad though.
This is Joe Brewster with Emerald Coast Cable and Cox Communications. We're standing at the Gulfarium, the scene of devastation, and they're doing everything possible to protect the safety of the animals. I have with me the director of the Gulfarium.
I'm the curator, Greg.
The curator. Greg, tell us about what's going on here.
Well, what we have going on is, like you said, total devastation. Luckily, we prepared well enough to keep our animals safe. It appears that we have lost one pinniped, or a harbor seal, as they're commonly called, but we have not been able to find the body yet. The storm surge took the gunite wall on the southern side of their enclosure completely away, and we have no idea where it is. All the dolphins are fine. All the sea lions are fine. We do have two otters that got out of their habitat, which was completely destroyed, and they are currently on the grounds. We know where they are. They're being fed underneath an area that they like to be in. So until we can get a permanent housing for them, that's where we'll leave them for now. We did have an alligator get loose, but he has been located. He is still on the Gulfarium grounds. So the residents of Fort Walton Beach need to not be worried about a Gulfarium alligator running loose. He is still out here on our grounds.
Do you have any special needs? Is there anything that the general public can provide, any assistance the Gulfarium needs?
Well, right now it's a matter of trying to get the water supply and the life support systems back for my animals. Gulf Power has been more than helpful in their assistance. In fact, everyone with the federal disaster relief has been more than helpful. We couldn't have asked for any more help than we're getting. Now it's just a matter of time and cleanup.
Well, we're thinking about you, and we hope that everything works out, and I know you've got a big job in front of you, but we look forward to seeing the Gulfarium open again.
We'll be back. Thanks a lot.
Okay, I'm talking with Angelina. She's from TIP, which is the Trauma Intervention Program. And Angelina, can you maybe explain this program and what you're doing out here today to help the citizens of Okaloosa Island and Fort Walton Beach?
Well, basically the program, this is our first response. The program has just gotten started in Okaloosa County. And the Trauma Intervention Program is for any kind of trauma, whether it be an individual house fire or death, accident on the road. We'll be called directly by law enforcement. We will be invited to that scene by law enforcement. And we kind of gathered everybody together. We were supposed to go online next week. So we started yesterday, actually.
Angelina, can you tell us what people are saying before they go on the bus and maybe after they come back? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
What we saw yesterday, because there was a great deal of people here yesterday, is there was a lot of apprehension, and it was rather quiet going out. Then when they began to see buildings standing, everyone, they would say, "That's my place, you know, it's there." And some of them, even if there wasn't very much there, if they could just see walls, they were almost euphoric at being able to see something left of what they owned. Unfortunately, there were some that there was nothing left for them, absolutely nothing. and they tried to stay calm and hold it together. And part of our job was to kind of be there and assist them, and sometimes just putting our hand on their shoulder and allow them to be publicly emotional seemed to help. And I did talk to one gentleman who lost his house in Aaron and he moved what he had left over there, and he lost everything over there. But he was hopeful. He said, well, I'll just start from the beginning. But it was very hard for all of them, very stressful for them. And for those of us that were riding out there, because everybody in Okaloosa County cares. Everyone. Well, they're working out there. You know, they were taking the sand and trying to put it back on the beach, and you would see a lot of houses that were just looked almost normal, as if nothing had come along. I think one of the things I noticed more is that I expected like windows to be gone, and there's an enormous amount of windows just there. No brokerage, nothing. Of course, the roof may be gone off of the place, or the bottom may be missing. And there are some of the places, what they're seeing is that they've already condemned some of the buildings, and this is very difficult for them, especially when it's their building. And they were concerned about, they'd see little yellow ribbons, and the officers had gone in and checked for any survivors and to secure the building as best they could. They're seeing roofs gone. They're seeing pieces that they almost don't recognize. A gentleman yesterday pointed out to his wife, well, there's our house, and she said, where? And he said, right there. And it was because the house was right there, but the whole front was gone, almost like a giant hand had just scooped out the middle of it. And when that happens, there's like a silence that comes over the bus. And when somebody says, oh, there's my place, everybody kind of is joyous again. But there's a lot of devastation, and there's a lot of, things in the wrong place, and roofs gone, and windows gone, and lives destroyed in the sense of all their belongings, of everything that was theirs from heaven knows how far back. But there's quite a few buildings that are condemned.
How many volunteers does your organization have out here, and how long are you going to be here to continue to help as you have?
Well, of course, we'll be here and keep responding for as long as necessary. And like today, we have about 7 or 8. And but you have to understand, some of them went to Navarre, some of them are on Holiday Isle right now, and then some of them are here. So while there's 29 volunteers in Okaloosa County, they're kind of dispersed to the different areas. Well, it's a very important factor. What we do is try to respond for the initial in crisis intervention, and we are urging them to follow through with trauma counseling, not only for the adults, but especially for the children, because there's a very long-term effect for children. And where they may be just saying, oh, look, the swimming pool's gone, or the window's out, or there's a boat, those are initial reactions, but they do have long-term effects. So, and for the adults, they need to know that they don't have to deal with this themselves. This is a major, major trauma for them, and that psychological counseling or emergency trauma intervention, and I understand Bridgeway is offering free trauma intervention starting tomorrow, so that the people can come and kind of work through some of that and maybe get even some indicators of what to watch for their children or for the rest of the family members. It's extremely important to follow through with this.
If people would need your help after this is over in the weeks to come, how do they get a hold of your organization? Who do they call and contact?
Well, as I say, TIP is the initial on-scene responder. So we don't make follow-up counseling, things like that. But one of the things, anyone who needs any kind of referrals and things like that, one of a big source here would be, of course, they can call directly, like to the crisis line. They could look in the phone book. Some of the psychologists have lost their offices and things too. But everybody's going to be pulling together for this. As I say, we directly respond at the invitation of law enforcement and the hospital.
I'm with Hazel. She's with the Department of Insurance, and they're working with FEMA, and she's going to explain how they're helping here and what's going on.
What we're basically trying to do is get the disaster assistance number for FEMA out to all people that have had any type of problems with the storm. If you need any type of assistance, small business, relief, a place to live, anything, problems you may be having, you need to call this number and get into the system and get your paperwork started. We also would like...
Would you give that number out?
Sure.
So
Sorry, it's 1-800-462-9029. That's a very, very important number. Also, we would like to get out to anyone that are having problems with their insurance companies, their insurance agents. If you've not seen an adjuster yet, you need to call the Department of Insurance at 1-800-227-8676. And people at that number can assist you with any type of problems you're having with, as I say, insurance problems. So please make sure you get in touch with one of those two 800 numbers for any type of assistance you're going to require from this storm.
Talking with Debbie Crane, and she's with the Emergency Animal Rescue Service. Debbie, can you tell us what you're doing out here and what you have to offer for people to save their animals or that type of thing?
We're a national organization of volunteers, and we have come in to assist PAWS in rescuing animals from the island. And we're here at the, I don't know what the bus tour place, and we're filling out forms of where the animals are, getting permission to go into the homes to get the animals out. Some of the animals we're going in and feeding, like some cats that we can leave a week's supply of food and water to. We're also finding temporary housing for them if they need to. And just general information if they need food. If they can't find any dog food or cat food, we have some coming in and we can distribute it for them. And the main, for stuff like that, would probably be to call the PAWS office.
What's your number?
The PAWS office is 904 area code, and it's 243-1525.
Now, I would assume this is for anyone in this area that would need help with their animals, correct?
Right, anyone in the area. And I think PAWS is restricted to Okaloosa, but if anyone in the surrounding communities need help and they can't get through to PAWS, they can call our 800 number, which is Sacramento, but they can get a hold of us through pagers, and that's 800-440-EARS, EARS. Oh, and you can call the 800 number also for contributions, because we're all volunteers and we've all spent all our own expenses getting down here to get here and help the animals, and we're all nonprofit and we run strictly on donations.
Do you need more people to help, to call you to volunteer for help?
Yes, we have training workshops, and we'll probably be setting one up down here now because we have a interest now, and Terry Crisp, our director, is the one who teaches them, and she will, if you call the 800 number, they'll send you an information packet and a sign-up sheet, and then when they set up a class, you'll be notified for it.